Morning everybody, it's Steph from Basden. Just here, just had my morning run. I think we're on week 5 now of UK isolation lockdown. As you can see, still no haircut, no trim. I want to talk about obviously Covid19 and coronavirus. I want to start on a more positive note before I get into that stuff. You know, this virus is stopping us from seeing our family and friends. It's stopping us from being human beings, stopping us from being social. It's making us stay indoors. But the one thing you can do is keep healthy, keep a positive mind, keep a creative mind. Do something different. What better time than to maybe lose a bit of weight, eat better, look after yourself, your family, train, get a bit more muscle. What a better time than now, where you have to stay home to do that. You don't even have to have a personal gym or weights. You could just do your own short burst exercises in your living room or in your bedroom. I go on runs every day. I make sure I get my family to do the same when they can. And hopefully when we get back to normal, we'll be a bit fitter, look better, feel better about ourselves. But yeah, getting straight into what the video is about. I went to Japan back in January. I spent a few weeks in Tokyo with family. And I'm 110% certain that I had this virus. I actually did at the time call 111, and they gave me a list of symptoms that aren't on the recommended government list of symptoms, things like throwing up or things like blood coming from your coughs or your sneezes. But the other symptoms that I did have was made it almost clear that I was suffering from the virus. Let's start from the beginning. I went to Japan. I spent quite a while in Japan. At the time, there was that cruise ship that was trying to dock in Japan, in Tokyo, and they weren't allowing the people on the ship to come off into Japan because obviously they were infected with coronavirus. That was when Japan was almost at its peak of infections, and it just come from China, from Wuhan. So I was already in Asia. I was already on that side of the world. So we were very worried. We had the masks on, the gloves. You'll see the video on my page if you want to go and check it out. But I came back and I was fine. Everyone was making jokes about don't bring it back to London, and I was like, oh, I'm fine. Went back to work. Should have self-isolated from then, but I went back to work the next day, and I sat down. I remember being completely fine. So this had already incubated within me for about 2 weeks, I'd say. I was sitting down at my desk. I felt absolutely fine. I was going to go play football after work. I had lunch. I was at the top of my game, and that's part of one of the symptoms where they say that just before the virus hits you, you feel better than you've ever felt. You feel healthy. You feel fit. You feel better than ever. I don't know exactly what it is. I'm not saying that I'm a scientist, and I'm not a researcher. But what I have read in one of the pieces that I saw online was that because obviously your body is building up an immunity to it, you've got an overflow of white blood cells in your body, which is obviously a good thing. It's defeating all the bad bacteria in your body. So you'd be feeling at one point really good, really healthy and really fit because your body is overflowing with white blood cells, with good bacteria. But then obviously how the virus works, and it spreads and it multiplies and your body doesn't know what to do with it. Then all of a sudden you have a crash and your body completely shuts down and you feel horrible, completely terrible. Not like dying, but like really bad flu symptoms, straight away within a couple of hours. So like I said, I was sitting at work, I was at my desk, and all of a sudden out of nowhere I literally had a crash, and I just said to my director, I said, listen, I'm going to be sick. I feel horrible. I need to go right now, because my body was literally just felt like it was shutting down. So to put it in more detail, I had things like headache, backache, all my muscles, my whole body was aching. I'm talking about joints in the shoulders, in the knees, in the back, in the arms, the neck. I certainly wasn't going to go football because I felt like I just needed to lie down. I couldn't walk at that point. I said to my family, I need to go to bed. I need to get home. I'm not going to go play football. I can't. I'm not going to eat. I just need to sleep. And that's what I did. I went home, lied down, and I started to shiver. It started to get later and later, and I started to say, okay, let's get to bed early. And I started to shake and shiver like aggressively. I had a fever. That's one of obviously the symptoms. The shivering is a symptom. The cough was there. It was quite a deep, chesty cough, like a dry cough. And I was shaking, shivering in a pool of sweat. And some of you, obviously, you've all had flu at one point. You know what that's like. But this was not a normal flu. This was a very painful flu. This was not something you just stay home and drink orange juice and have soup and drink lots of fluid. This was something else. And I know my body very well because I try and look after myself. And I said to myself, this is something different. And at one point, I swear, I said to myself, this is definitely the virus, because I feel horrible. And something's wrong. I can't breathe. I'm coughing. I'm shivering. I've got a fever. I've got all the windows open. My body's burning up. I'm shaking. I'm cold, and I'm hot, and I'm cold again. And that went on for about 3 nights. And I just said to my family, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. I'll be okay. But I was not fine. At that point, I said, this is getting really bad, and I feel horrible. I'm going to call 111. So I did, and at that point I don't think the government knew exactly what they were dealing with, because that was very early in London. That was before anybody else, because you can imagine I was in Japan before anybody else, so it hadn't actually hit England yet. So the first cases, this was at the same time that guy in Brighton was going through the same thing. So and he was the first case that was in London that spread it, if you remember the stories. And nobody had the virus over here. Everybody was still making jokes about it and memes, but I was like, this is definitely it. I didn't want to tell anybody about it because it was so scary. But obviously, me being young and fit at the time, I think I battled through it. And it's not a joke, because there's a lot of people dying, a lot of older people, and now younger people that are dying from it, even with not underlying health conditions. So it's quite sad that I know that I had this, and I know that I got through it, and a lot of people can't, and their bodies aren't able to deal with it, which is very sad and very worrying, especially when you've got older family members like my mum and dad, both in their late 50s and 60s. So anyway, like I said, I called 111. I'm going to finish the story now, but I called 111. They didn't do anything about it at the time, because like I said, it was very early, and they just told me to stay home and isolate, which I did. They said, we're not going to rush an ambulance out to you because you are able to breathe. So I said, that's fine. They said, there's no blood in your coughing. I said, no. So they said, that's fine, stay home, isolate, and look after yourself. And they've been sending me messages and emails and texts and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think I was severe enough to have to go to hospital. So and thank God. But for anybody out there that's suffering at the moment and may have lost a family member, or may be losing a family member, my family member's in hospital at the moment, and it's very, very scary, that everybody at some point will lose someone, or will know someone that's lost someone during this epidemic and this unprecedented time. But stay strong. I'm not really going to do many videos on this. I'm not someone who's going to preach about this virus, and I just wanted to tell you my experience and what I went through and what I think people should do. And going back to the beginning of the video, again, stay healthy, stay fit, keep yourself, look after yourself, keep yourself creative, do something you haven't done before. Maybe once this is all over, we'll look back and we'll smile and say, at least we got through this, and and at least we will know for the future, and we'll know what to do if this ever comes up again. That's all I have to say, really. Look after yourself, stay home, stay safe. Thank you again to the NHS for everything they're doing so far. My name's Stephen Baisden. Thanks.